You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network. I am your host, Skyler Timmons, and joined here by my cohort, co-host, other adjectives and descriptions of other person. It's Evan Lang.
Adjective noun.
Yes. There we go. Off to a roaring start. We're recording this on Father's Day, so happy Father's Day to those out there.
You could say that we are the fathers of this podcast.
We merely adopted this too. We found it abandoned in the wilderness, and then we
took it in.
We took it in.
Cleaned it up.
Made it stupider.
Got a soundboard.
Fun times, though.
So proud.
It was
so
three
proud
men
to
and a
see where
baby
it's all become.
situation because we had Mac here.
I miss Mac, our third man, or baby.
May he rest in peace.
He fell down that Kingdom Hearts hole and could never climb back out.
Kingdom Hearts now on Steam.
Oh, is it really?
Yes,
That's cool.
And they're charging full price.
Oof. For a set of games that are almost all of them are almost 20 years old at this point.
Yeah, the first two are pretty dang old.
I'm pretty sure Kingdom Hearts 1 came out in 2001 or 2002.
Yeah, something like that. No,
full price.
The power of friendship is no match for the power of money.
Or development hell if you're the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake, which is going on 7 years in development and now has a release date of 2026.
There you go.
Or the Knights of the Old Republic remake, which I don't believe exists anymore.
It exists in theory.
I don't think they've had any updates on it. I think it might be just flat out canceled. No,
there's some updates I saw recently that they're still intent. There's still intentions to make it.
Yeah, and I have an intention to be successful in life. That doesn't mean it's going to happen.
It hasn't been canned yet.
I intend for the Rockies to be a good baseball team. That doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Unfortunately, no, that is not the case. But
no way. The Rockies are bad.
I'm just learning this for the first time.
That's shocking. I'm shocked.
This is my shocked face. Or the old Patrick Stewart mild shock. Anyways.
Earl Grey, hot.
Make it so, number one. We're here to talk about Rockies baseball, though. We could go down our rabbit hole of random video game stuff and whatnot.
Yeah. I know the first 3 minutes of this podcast could have fooled you, but This is a baseball show.
I just wonder if somebody's listened to it and we get into the baseball talk and they're like, wait, what?
It'd be funny.
Mm-hmm. But Rockies moving right along here in June. June's not very fun at the moment. But before we get into the meat of everything, Evan, what are some quick injury updates going on around the farm?
A decent amount here. We've got a bunch of rehab assignments going on. Kyle Freeland made a really solid rehab start with Albuquerque last week. Herman Marquez tonight, which would be Sunday, is having a rehab start with the Fresno Grizzlies. He had a really, really good first stint with the ACL Rockies. He pitched an inning and 2/3, had 4 strikeouts, just 1 hit, looked really solid. Jake Bird, Justin Lawrence, a bunch of other pitchers are all on rehab assignments. Zach Veen is on rehab assignment. Everyone's finally starting to get healthy. Really excited for having Kyle Freeland and eventually Herman back. For Freeland, he's going to be making, at time of listening tomorrow, that is Tuesday, the 18th, he's going to be making one last rehab start. And if all goes well, they are expecting to activate him in time for his next start with the Rockies rotation. For Herman, we're looking at maybe more July, mid-July, around the All-Star break for when he might be activated. Just depends on how things go with these rehab starts. I expect him to be on a pitch count tonight. And really all we can do is just sort of wait and see for people to get back.
Mm-hmm. There's guys going down to the Arizona Complex League to do stuff. I think like Jake Bird, Justin Lawrence is slowly working back.
Both Bird
All that good stuff.
and Lawrence are with Albuquerque right now.
There you go. They started there and moved up.
Nolan Jones is back. Nolan Jones has been hitting really well since he returned. The series finale against the Pirates, he had 3 hits. He's drawn 5 walks since returning, so that on-base percentage just rocketing up since he came back off the injured list. Elias Diaz is on the injured list for that calf strain. They will hopefully have him back soon. And then Brendan Rodgers is still on the injured list with that hamstring strain.
Mm-hmm. And Sean Bouchard rolled his ankle. He's hanging out. A lot of guys on the mend, but this is where we can transition into really the big one, the big injury that we keep talking about. And we know probably everybody's tired of talking about this type of stuff. I know we kind of both are, and I know a lot of the fans are, and I'm sure the Rockies themselves are sick of talking about this stuff. But Mr. Back Injury himself, who aggravated his back, hitting into that fence, making a foul ball catch against the Dodgers, the $182 million man, it was revealed, I also have an oblique strain, an internal oblique strain or whatever, and we don't know when he's coming back. The Kris Bryant disaster continues, Evan.
I'm so tired of talking about Kris Bryant. I am so tired of talking about these injuries and everything with him. It has just been constant since he arrived here in Colorado. And it's really funny because I keep saying this. Before 2022, he really did not have a reputation as being injury prone. He had played at least 100 games in every season of his career but the COVID season. But now you can't get him on the field for pretty much any reason. He got himself tangled up in the netting at Dodger Stadium. They called it originally the hit aggravated his back. Then they called it a rib contusion. And now he comes out and says, "Oh, sorry, guys. I've actually got an internal oblique strain and I have no idea when I'm going to be back."
Mm-hmm.
If
Not what you want to hear.
If you want my honest opinion, I doubt we see Kris Bryant again this season. And honestly, that would probably be for the best.
Yeah, because with those obliques, you just never know. It can either he comes back real quick, by the All-Star break, or like you said, he could be out until September. You just never know. Just the length, because obliques are such a weird injury, and it's hard to get them back into a good shape. We've seen guys that lose months upon months. There's that 1 year David Dahl had his oblique strain, and we just didn't see him for the rest of the season. And it happened in like May. So you just never know with those. But I think on the safe side, it'd probably be a safe bet to say, Kris Bryant's probably not playing again in 2024. There's a chance, and he could probably get his way back just out of sheer stubbornness. But the likelihood of you wouldn't be remiss if you're like, we're probably not going to see him again. That's a pretty safe bet.
And honestly, like I said, that's probably for the best at this point. You put him on the 60-day IL, you open up a 40-man roster spot, and you continue to give playing time to these young guns. Because I'm sorry, but Kris Bryant just does not provide any value to this team whatsoever. Mm-hmm. The Rockies are paying him $182 million to be constantly on the injured list. And in the rare opportunity that he is on the field, he's not playing well.
Mm-hmm.
It's been diminishing returns every season for Bryant. And it's pretty telling that his first season with the Rockies was his best season with the Rockies. 2022, he only played in 42 games and had an 851 OPS. Last year, he played in 80 games and had a 680 OPS. This year, 24 with a 586 OPS. It's just what he's doing. He's not getting better, and his injuries aren't slowing down. If anything, they're getting worse. I really don't know what else to say on the matter other than this contract is a complete bust in every way, shape, and form. Probably one of the worst if not the worst in Rockies history. It's going to go down as one of the worst in baseball history, even worse than the Jose Abreu contract with the Astros, because they at least got a couple good years out of him.
No, they did not, actually. Last year was okay, and then he's been terrible this year. And then that's it. Because they only signed him to a 3-year deal, and he was not great last year, but it was kind of like, eh. He showed some flashes, and then it was just downright awful this season. He looked good against the Rockies in Mexico City, which, again, who doesn't look good against the Rockies? But then they sent him down to the minor leagues to work on stuff. Nothing was going on, and they finally cut him with 1 year left on his 3-year deal.
And they're eating what, $30 million, I think, of that contract.
Yeah, $30 million.
The Rockies have much more than that to pay.
Yeah. Yeah, they would have to come to some sort of agreement with Bryant, like, hey, can we restructure this thing, defer some money down the line so we can.
And that's just never going to happen, frankly.
Yeah.
I think from the Bryant camp, especially as a Scott Boras client, there is no way he's going to part with any additional money. I think from the Rockies camp, they are so thoroughly bought into the sunk cost fallacy that they would not be willing to eat that money. And now we're all just stuck here. Mm-hmm. But as hopefully you have read on my Monday Rock Pile, one of these parties needs to say enough is enough. Mm-hmm. We're in the 3rd season of this. He has barely seen the field. When he is on the field, he's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
What is the point of all of this?
Yeah, and this buys into a lot of the problems with the whole Bryant deal, because when he initially signed, you're like, yeah, he was way overpaid. But it's okay. Maybe he could do something.
But he's not. It's like, that's the thing. And especially when he comes in and they play him up just by going like, oh, he's just one of the guys. We don't expect him to be the savior of the franchise. But if you read back on the introductory press conference when Bryant comes to town in 2022, they are absolutely playing him up as the savior of this franchise. Mm-hmm. Of the Rockies are bad, but he's going to be the guy that gets everything to turn around. And him saying, oh, I've never played on a losing team before. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? He didn't turn around the Rockies, and he's playing for a losing team.
Yeah. And the whole thing with it is Kris Bryant, it's becoming more and more apparent. He came to the Rockies, one, for the money, because nobody else is going to give him that big of a contract. And Scott Boras follows the money. It doesn't matter where they go, as long as they are willing to pay out the most, they're going to go there. The Rockies fell for that bait. No, let me walk that back. Dick Monfort fell for that bait because he wanted a superstar, a marquee talent, a superstar name. That's what's going to bring people to Coors Field. But the thing is, Evan, for 30 years, we've had a lot of marquee names. And yeah, they helped bring into the ballpark, but that can only do so much for so long. At a point of a franchise that has really known nothing but losing, Kris Bryant wasn't going to change a dang thing. I wasn't going to go to the Rockies. Oh, Kris Bryant's there? I'm going to go see him. Like, I couldn't care less. I want to see a winning team on the field now. And I think a lot of fans are at that point now of, I don't care what his name is. I don't care what he's done in the past. What's he going to do for me now? And Kris Bryant has done nothing. He was already on the decline before he came to Colorado. But I think a lot of us still hope, yeah, he's got that pedigree. I think he can help out. He could do something here. He has that potential.
And he was an all-star in 2021.
Yeah.
He had a pretty solid season. But, you know, Patrick Saunders of the Denver Post reported that the Rockies essentially overpaid him by like $50 million compared to other offerings he was getting, which could have been, I believe, like San Francisco or Philadelphia. But it's like, when he signed that thing, you know, Scott Boras quips, when I go to a wedding, I don't talk about the bridesmaids, when he was asked about the other teams. And I think that definitely tells you, yeah, the Rockies way overpaid. And then you have Dick Monfort going about how it's a great day for us. Just so many things make this feel really, really right. We're extremely excited to have Kris with us for the next 7 years and to help us win that elusive World Series we are all looking for. And we're 3 years in, and we've got what? 3 more losing seasons. A superstar being paid superstar money to not play, and a fan base that, for those who aren't completely zoned out, have had enough. I've had enough with Kris Bryant. I am, I feel for the guy. It stinks to be in your 30s and not able to stay healthy and stay on the field. But at the same time, it feels like he's constantly trying to do some sort of damage control for his reputation and like this quote from him from when Thomas Harding talked to him about this oblique injury, of him going, I don't know, it just sucks. Like, I'm trying to put a smile on my face and be positive and this and that. But the last week has been pretty frustrating for me. When the team was out of town, I was sitting on my couch watching the games and researching how to get better and buying all sorts of things on the internet. And yeah, we all engage in a little bit of retail therapy from time to time, but most of us don't have $182 million with which to do that. And that is the amount of sympathy I have for Kris Bryant right now when he says that kind of thing. It's like, you're getting paid $182 million. You have played 24 games this season.
And done pretty much little to nothing in those games. And it's becoming more and more apparent where he really did come to Colorado, one, for the money and just to hide. No, this was the early retirement because he had already accomplished everything in his career. Colorado now, they're going to pay me to play some baseball. And I don't think either of us are going to blame Kris Bryant for taking the money. No. He's not stealing money. Dick Monfort willingly gave him this money because he wanted a marquee player to bring fans into the ballpark because they botched the Nolan Arenado trade so bad. They lost Story, they lost John Gray, and so it was a panic. We need a big name player to sell merchandise and bring people into the stands. But unfortunately, they bet on the wrong pony, and all the egg is on Monfort's face. So I don't blame Kris Bryant for taking the money.
Like, you've got that Colorado sports news guy. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Who got what he wanted, and we're talking about him now. So he got his clicks of saying, Kris Bryant robbed the Rockies. It's one of the greatest heists of all time. Blah blah blah. It's like, no, neither you nor I nor anybody else is going to turn down $182 million.
Yeah, Dick Monfort was driving the getaway car and gave him the key into the bank. Like, this wasn't a bank robbery or anything. I don't think anybody blames Kris Bryant for getting his bag where he could. The problem all is on an owner who so out of touch, I guess, I don't know if the right word to say, just not really knowing what he's doing with the baseball decisions, getting involved where he shouldn't, and making this decisions he shouldn't because he just worried about his bottom line and how the team and himself were perceived. So Bryant comes in and it's just been a disaster where I don't know what it is, where he is just aging in dog years. Every little thing, he bumps into a wall, he's out of baseball for 3 weeks. No, the way his body is breaking down is absurd. And it's just becoming more annoying. And then he just disappears. We don't hear about him. We just know he's injured. For all I know, he's not involved in the city of Denver. Hasn't really bought into the city. Isn't involved there.
As far as I'm aware, he's not in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen other guys on the sidelines and in the dugout for Rockies games. Armand's been there. Kyle's been there. Gilly, J-Law, Bird, Bouchard. Pretty much all the other guys who have been hurt have been on that sideline.
You'll see him every once in a while, but we always hear, behind the scenes, he's good with players. He's a good mentor and tries to help the team off the field. But that does nothing for me as a fan of, I don't care. Look, that's good. He's helping the guys, and I'm sure they value some of that advice. But the best thing he could do for the team and for his teammates is figure out how to be healthy and play on the freaking field. Hit the dang ball.
And a great comparison, Skyler, that we brought up yesterday while we were talking about this is Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. Russell Wilson was probably the most hated athlete in Colorado last year. Would I be wrong in saying that, do you think?
No, because especially considering the Broncos and just their history and their legacy, how much they mean to the city of Denver, and the whole debacle with Russell Wilson, him being just the biggest weirdo on the planet too. He's an odd duck. But yeah, he was pretty dang hated, Evan.
But during that time, Russell Wilson was still going out into the city of Denver and into the community and doing things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, making the visits to the children's hospital and being a pillar of support in the community, despite all of that. And now, having taken his place as the next guy who's being viewed as having robbed a Colorado sports team is Kris Bryant. But you don't see Kris Bryant do any of that. And, you know, in his introductory press conference, he talked about how much he loves Colorado, is excited to live in Colorado, is excited to do all that. But we've never really seen him in 3 years interact with the community in any meaningful way, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. If anything, it'd be just maybe some minor team things and whatnot. But, you know, when they go to Mexico City, he was injured then, wasn't he? Yeah.
He was already on the injured list when he went to Mexico City.
See, he's on the injured list so much we forget when he does play.
It's been ridiculous how many times he's been on the injured list. He was on the injured list 3 times in 2022, 2 more times in 2023, and this year he's already been on the injured list twice for the majority of the season. We are 71 games in, and he has played in 24 of them.
Yeesh. It's just a huge mess, and he wants to hide. He doesn't make himself available to the media hardly ever. And so when he does, it's these little statements like you're talking about. It's like, oh, I'm frustrated. I want to be on the field. I want to play. But there's so much more he could do. I remember once when Michael Kadire was injured, when he messed up his shoulder playing third base because the team needed a third baseman. He's like, I can do it. I'll play it. And then he hurt his shoulder diving for a ball. But I remember him. He was still involved. Like, he was still around. He was helping host the pregame show and doing post-game work for the team. Like, he was up there in front, holding the microphone, talking on camera and doing that kind of stuff, analysis before and after the games. It's like Michael Kadire was on a 3-year deal, and he still bought into everything. A huge team player. He was really more outspoken, and there's all these differences of personalities. But when you're getting paid $182 million, you can't afford to hide in the shadows. You don't have that luxury. Well, Nolan Jones or like other guys, they can. Jake Cave can stick down the scenes. He's not making the big bucks. Kris Bryant's getting paid, $28 million this year. And we never see him. He never talks to anybody. And I think a lot of us are just fed up with it. Like, he doesn't have the grace, the reputation and graces that he has in Chicago. Didn't come here. We don't care what he was in Chicago.
Like, maybe some of the Chicagoites that have lived in Denver now care. Like, the first 2 years, I think people did. They bought into Kris Bryant. They bought their KB jerseys and they came to the ballpark to see him. But, there was a great interview. I'm trying to remember who did it. It was a Denver Post piece of someone I think it was Sean Keeler going around the ballpark and asking people about it. And this guy was like, I'm tired of having to explain to my kids why Kris Bryant isn't here when they want to see him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think I've seen Kris Bryant play. I think I've seen him play once since he's been here and going to a Rockies game. So maybe 2022 it must have been. No, I didn't see him in 2022. I don't think I've seen Kris Bryant play when I've gone to a Rockies game. And I haven't been to one since 2022.
And I really like what you brought up about when Cuddy was hurt and he was doing just whatever, wherever. And even showing up on the broadcast. You know who's shown up on the broadcast this year? Daniel Bard a couple of times. And Daniel Bard, we've seen him in full uniform hanging out with the team, despite the fact that he's got the big robot claw on his arm. And last year, we saw Gilly do it as well. I think Gilly's also been in the booth at least once this year. But where's KB? I mean, when the media, like, somewhat affectionately refers to him as like Kris Bryant Squatch because he's so elusive, it's just like, something's gotta give here.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you anything about Kris Bryant, who he is as a person, what I know about him, what I like about him, because I couldn't tell you about his personality because we just never see him.
And it's like, there are a couple guys you don't know a ton about. You know what I know about for some guys? I know Kris Bryant, not Kris Bryant, goodness. I know Kyle Freeland and Ryan McMahon love to golf.
Yeah. We all know about Chuck Nasty. We know there's a ton of those guys. We know like bits and pieces about them, what they like. Those instances when we've had in-game interviews with Cal Quantrill or Austin Gomber, you get to see their personalities a little bit mid-game interview. Those are awesome. And you're like, oh, Gomber's a good dude. Quantrill's a goofy dude, but like smart, really nice guy.
He's Canadian. He really does remind me of Jeff Francis sometimes.
Yeah.
Just this weirdo Canadian gung-ho pitcher.
But it's just a very frustrating situation. And at some point, they just have to swallow their pride and say, KB, this isn't working out. We're going to have to eat this cost.
But I just feel like they won't.
Yeah.
That's what drives me crazy.
Dick Monfort won't let them.
The writing is on the wall that this is a huge bust, and this is not sustainable for another 4 years after this. But we're going to be stuck with it because Kris Bryant isn't going to retire, and Dick Monfort's not going to say, I'm going to pay $182 million for nothing.
Yeah. He's not going to say, I made a mistake. But hey, he's going to age like a fine wine, right? He's only 32.
When I am healthier than Kris Bryant, that's when you got problems.
It stinks. It stinks. It stinks.
And with that, Mr. Sherman.
One of our players is a cannibal. Try and guess which one. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
This segment ran a little long, but hey, we wanted to vent a little. But
I think we've earned it.
Yeah. Darn you, Kris Bryant. Nice guy. I wish him the best, though. I wish it would work out. But alas, it probably won't. But anyways, we'll take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about some all-star cases with some good playing dudes at the moment. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back here to Affected by Altitude. I'm Skyler. That's Evan. And we got in our long rant about Mr. Kris Bryant. But now we're actually going to talk about some guys that are actually playing. And also guys making some really good all-star cases, Evan. Specifically 2 guys. Probably with the best ones. There's an honorable mention we might get into a little bit. But 2 guys really making a case to be all-stars, maybe even starting all-stars, Evan. There you go. It's over at third base, Mr. Ryan McMahon, and over at shortstop, Senor Ezequiel Tovar.
Tovamos. Mm-hmm. I think right now, of the 2, if we're looking for a guy who's going to start, I think Ezequiel Tovar should be the front runner for that because he is defensively the best shortstop in the game. Mm-hmm. Like he leads the DRS race for shortstop in the National League, and I don't believe it's particularly close.
Yeah, or I think he's like tied with a couple guys, or just up there among shortstops.
He was leading last time I checked. But the other thing is he's just hitting really well this year, mm-hmm. where right now he has he's tied for the second most doubles in all of baseball with Aaron Judge at 22. And the only person with more is Phillies third baseman Alec Boehm with 26. Meanwhile, Tovar's hitting 290, 318, 491 with an 809 OPS. He's got 11 home runs, 34 ribbies. Yeah, his strikeout to walk ratio is a little unseemly, but the thing is, and we've talked about this before, he's getting the ball in play, and that's what matters.
Should we change his name to Ezequiel Tovar? Because he
Yes.
hits doubles.
Yes, we should.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of it where he's had a pretty good rookie season, was a Gold Glove finalist, didn't get as much Rookie of the Year recognition as he probably should have. But this year, he's just building up, and that incredible month of May where he was pretty much the best shortstop in all of baseball. And, it seemed this year, probably not a chance to win the starting job because there's a guy named Mookie Betts who plays for the Dodgers who moved to shortstop this season and is still likely to get that vote. But some news, Evan, on the horizon that Mookie Betts got a fractured left hand today.
Oh, that's a bummer.
So he'll probably still win that vote, but hey, that opens the door for a battle between CJ Abrams for Washington Nationals. Having a good year, by the way. Numbers pretty similar to Tovar's offensively, but I think Tovar really deserves more of that recognition, more of a voting push, because he's doing it all. He's pretty much one of the best consistent hitter for the Rockies, driving that offense. He's hitting home runs. I think, was he just behind Shohei Ohtani in extra base hits?
I believe so, in total extra base hits. And then with his glove, he is basically one of the best defensive shortstops in the league. He leads the league in both DRS, defensive runs saved, and ultimate zone rating for the National League. The only player above him in all of baseball for UZR is Gunnar Henderson, which that's elite company right there, because Gunnar Henderson's really good. For outs above average, he's in the top 4. For defensive WAR, he's in the top 4, behind Willie Adames, Francisco Lindor, and Bobby Witt Jr., which, again, that's some dang good company, despite the fact that Willie Adames and Francisco Lindor both have 0 defensive runs saved. But they're worth that solid defensive WAR. And it's mostly because of that outs above average. Both Lindor and Willie Adames are worth 8 outs above average. Tovar is worth 7. But either way, he is an elite defensive shortstop. And he showed us that last year, and he's continuing to show it to us this year. And you combine that with the fact that he is hitting really well, that he is providing incredible value at the plate for the Rockies, or the Rockies team whose offense has been pretty bad.
And like we talk about, there's still flaws in his swing. He still has a real big tendency to chase and strike out. But again, he's only, 21, 22? It's still pretty dang young, 22. And there's still a lot of room to grow for him.
And he's also cut down tremendously on his strikeout rate. They showed a graphic in today's game where in April, his strikeout rate was in the 30s. And then in May, his strikeout rate was in the 20s. And now it's in the teens. He's getting that strikeout rate down. He's cutting down on the chasing. And yeah, he's still going to chase every now and then. But the fact that he leads the team in wins above replacement via Baseball Reference at 2.9, and for position players, it's not really particularly close with anyone behind him. It's Ryan McMahon with 1.7 and Elias Diaz at 1.5. That's a big gap.
Yeah. He's doing it all. He's getting it done on both sides of the ball. It's just fun to watch him play shortstop. You see some of the plays he makes that he gets to, and you're like, man, this kid is talented. And I don't know if you call him a kid because he is a father already. He's done more in his life than me.
They keep saying he's like the most mature 22-year-old you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
And he's also I'm sorry, you watch him in his interviews, he's just delightful. He plays with a smile. His interviews are always fun. I really enjoyed, most recently, he was doing a pregame interview, and Alan Trejo was there to translate for him. But he went out of his way to at least try and answer things in English. And, he's trying to make some jokes. And they're talking about, oh, you've got such great power. And he's like, oh, I don't think I have very big power at all. But meanwhile, he's hit 11 home runs, and a lot of them have been just very well struck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been a lot of fun to watch this season, and it makes that deal that they signed him to, you're like, it's a pretty good deal that we got him on. Especially when we got him because his agency ran into some trouble after that deal. A little sketchy. Don't be giving gifts to the NBA Finals.
But the fact that he is locked down long term and he's not really having a sophomore slump, he's just continuing to improve and be fun to watch. And if he makes the All-Star game, which he should, like I 100% think Tovar should be an All-Star. I really hope that he is maybe able to get the starting nod, or like you said, if Mookie does get voted in, but he can't play because of that fractured hand, which stinks for him, and I'm sorry to hear about that because he's such a fun player to watch. But I would take that gain if it meant that Tovar got to start for the All-Star game in front of a national audience.
Yeah, and let's see who's okay. The Diamondbacks are the National League coaching staff. There we go. There's a chance. There's a chance. Unless they give it to C.J. Abrams, but
which would again be well deserved. I like C.J. Abrams a lot, and I think he's got a lot to be proud of. But he's not that great of a defensive shortstop.
Yeah.
C.J. Abrams' major skill set is with the bat,
which unfortunately is how a lot of voting goes. Is what do you do with the bat?
It's a lot. It's telling that when you pull up your All-Star ballot to vote, it only shows offensive stats.
And it also has Kris Bryant listed in the outfield options for the Rockies.
You mean you're not going to vote for Kris Bryant?
No, I reserve my right to vote for Martin Maldonado, though.
I mean, at that point, you're doing it for the memes, right? What is what's his name? John Scott. There's a NHL All-Star game a couple of years ago where basically all the fans banded together to vote this one guy to the All-Star game.
Or that year it was oops, all Royals.
I still get mad about that, where it's like, yeah, the Royals are good and they just won the World Series, but come on.
Are you telling me that fan voting doesn't work?
I'm totally fine with fan voting. I just think it needs to carry a little less weight than it does right now.
Mm-hmm. But Tovar really making a really big, strong case to get an All-Star nod. No, as the representative of the Rockies, we're assuming the Rockies will get just one this year, which it's probably deserved. But there's so many All-Stars. Like, you don't even have to worry about the fan vote because there's guys that opt out and they have to get replaced on the roster. So even if they don't get voted in and initially selected, there's always a chance until the All-Star game itself that guys get the call. But the other guy making a real strong case is his partner over there on the left side of the infield, Ryan McMahon, who seems to be, for a lot of people, the consensus, he's probably going to be an All-Star this year for the Rockies. Selection. But I think Tovar's giving him a run for his money, and McMahon still with a strong case, even despite his recent slump that he had before his current little hot streak.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that for Ryan McMahon, his bad month of June so far, where through yesterday, he has an OPS of just 666 with 2 home runs and 5 doubles, and he has struck out a ton. 21 strikeouts to just 4 walks in the month of June, where previously his strikeouts had been a lot more under control and he was drawing more walks. It has been a tough month for Rymack. He's very obviously slumping, but he's still been a very good defender this year. His numbers with the bat are still pretty good, all things considered, where he has 12 home runs and he has an on-base percentage of 346 and a slugging percentage of 462 with an OPS plus of 121. that'll play. I also think it helps that Ryan McMahon is probably the most well-known Rocky on the team in terms of a national audience. Like, I never hear people when they're talking about players they want them to pursue at the trade deadline. I always hear people who are like, oh, we should try and get Ryan McMahon. I don't hear anybody say, oh, we should try and get Elias Diaz or Jacob Stallings.
Yeah, you never hear about that. There should be more talk about Jacob Stallings, though. He's the hot new craze. But yeah, Ryan McMahon, he's been, because he comes out of the gate so hot, and that's when people really make their impressions in April. Oh, this guy's doing really good. He should be an all-star. They're like, no, we should make our decisions closer to the all-star game as opposed to a guy that had a hot month. But McMahon, I think, has been that most consistent hitter out of the gate for the Rockies, and really was carrying that offense in those early days in April. Then when everybody else started to click in May, that helped him where he could then relax a little bit more. And I think it's kind of catching up to him where it's Austin or people just have a better number on him in June, which has led to a bit of a slump. But over his last couple of games, had like 7 extra base hits. And so he's going hitting doubles, home runs. So he's got plenty of power. He's been doing well in that department, and that helps a lot. Where he is just a thumper in that lineup. When he can connect, oh boy, those things fly. And him and Tovar as a kind of a 1-2 punch type of thing in some form, whether Tovar's hitting second and he's hitting third, or Tovar hits third and he's hitting fourth. They're a good combo in that lineup and on the left side of the infield. It's reminiscent of, I don't know why the Rockies are good at creating like third baseman shortstop duos. It's weird. But hey, this is the new duo.
I mean, you got to have something you're good at. And with the Rockies, there's not much of it.
We're good on the left side.
Yeah, we can do shortstops and we can do third baseman. Everything else, you've got we draft a lot of outfielders. Not all of them hit, but we sure do have a lot of them.
We can sure pick guys that can run around in the outfield. How can they hit, sir? But McMahon's making a good case. Especially this year, third base in the National League's pretty weak. You still have the big name like Nolan Arenado, probably gets a good number of votes. Austin Riley, who's been injured, I think quite a bit. He probably still gets a good number of votes, unfortunately, because they still put guys that have been injured on for a while on there. But I think the main competition has been Alec Bohm for Philadelphia. I think he's the one that's getting the most recognition of, he's probably be the starting third baseman, or at least the third baseman for the National League. But McMahon's right on his heels there too, and very deserving of the conversation debate there with Bohm.
Yeah, and when you look at qualified third basemen for statistical leaders, Ryan McMahon is up there in basically every category. He's got the third most RBIs behind Alec Bohm and Chicago's Christopher Morel. He's got he's tied for the second most home runs behind Morel and tied with Jeimer Candelario of the Cincinnati Reds. He has the second best batting average among all NL third basemen. He has the second best on base percentage. He's got the third best slugging percentage, and he's got he's tied for second best with OPS. So yeah, Alec Bohm is like the leader in most of these categories, and I would say is probably the most likely to win, especially because Philly's big name East Coast team. But he's got a really good chance, and I think it's worth noting just how good he's been this year. And honestly, kind of worth noting how bad Nolan Arenado's been this year.
He was off to a horrendous slump to start the year. He started to pick it up a little bit these last couple of weeks. But yeah, hasn't been as crisp at the plate.
Nolan Arenado has a slugging percentage of just 381.
Mm-hmm.
And he has an OPS of 697. Only 13 doubles and 6 home runs. Mm-hmm. And he's striking out at a decent clip, a little more than we're used to seeing Nolan. And a lot of it is, I mean, we're not going to talk about Nola too much, but it's like his swing has looked really off.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with St. Louis that have all over the place, and a big part of their problems is, I think, Arenado's just gotten away from what he used to be. His stance looks a lot different and
His
everything.
swing looks different. His stance looks different. His body language looks, you can tell he's not happy out there right now. And we're looking at the possibility where Nolan Arenado, who has not missed an All-Star game since 2015, the only time he wasn't in an All-Star game was 2020 when there wasn't an All-Star game.
Mm-hmm.
There's a non-zero chance he's not an All-Star this year.
Mm-hmm. They'll find a way to shoehorn him in.
They probably will. But I think it also goes to look at, how he also didn't win a Gold Glove last year for the first time in his entire career. But, that decline opens a door for guys like Ryan McMahon, who have quietly been playing on par with Nolan since he left.
Mm-hmm.
And, Ryan McMahon, I think, is incredibly deserving of an all-star nod. I think he's been deserving of it several times. I think he's deserved to win the Gold Glove at least twice at third base over the last 3 seasons. And, hasn't, because these awards just don't tend to favor Rockies that much, unless your name was Nolan Arenado. But I really do hope McMahon makes it. If in my perfect world, both McMahon and Tovar are all-stars.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in a perfect world, it's McMahon, Tovar, Doyle, Diaz.
I don't know about Doyle, but Diaz maybe.
Doyle, yes.
He hasn't done enough.
Incredible defensive center fielder, though.
Yeah, but like we said, defense isn't going to get you to the All-Star game.
But it should.
It should be more than just one thing. But unfortunately, yeah. Well, so we'll see what happens. Other guys, like we mentioned, Diaz, he's currently injured, but he'll be back sometime soon. Definitely deserving. Probably won't get the nod, but he's been one of the best offensive catchers this season. Pitching wise, which is out of the hands of the fans, Cal Quantrill might be making a good case for himself. We'll see, but he could be one that I could see. League won't probably do it. Rockies are. I'm assuming the Rockies just get one representative this year.
Yeah,
so it's going to be between. It's probably going to be between McMahon and Tovar, but Cal Quantrill. No, if they went with him instead, you're like, that's not a bad choice, depending on how things go over this next month. But
at least it's like a reserve or something.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, he's pretty deserving, especially that bounce back that he's had this year and just how good he's been in the first half. One of the best pitchers since like the beginning of May in the National League.
Here's a fun fact for you. Cal Quantrill for pitching WAR via Baseball Reference, 4th best in the National League, behind Ranger Suarez of Philadelphia, Reynaldo Lopez of Atlanta, and Shota Imanaga of the Cubs.
There you go.
That's pretty impressive, honestly. Like, I would definitely consider Cal. If I had a stake in it, I do legitimately think he's been very, very good. And I wouldn't have him starting the game or whatever.
No, that's Ranger Suarez.
But the fact that he has been so good on a, let's face it, bad Rockies team. The Rockies are bad. And most of the pitching has been bad.
Yeah.
But not Cal Quantrill, who continues to just have that dog in him.
He's having a Jason Marquis type season, and Marquis was a All-Star in 2009. So he's basically on that track. So it could happen. And hey, random world, we get those 3 in the All-Star game.
I'm crossing my fingers.
Hey, this 100 and some odd lost team, they got 3 All-Stars that year. Woo!
Hey, things have been weirder.
Hey,
the Rockies
that happens. That's baseball.
I mean, but think about, hey, the 2019 season, the Rockies were pretty bad. And didn't we have 3 All-Stars that year?
Yes. That was David Dahl year, wasn't it?
That was David Dahl year.
Yeah. The year before that. No, it was 2017. We had 4.
we're not having 4 anytime soon. I'll tell you that for free.
Hey, you get Diaz in there with Quantrill. There you go. There's 4.
Like, I love my Rockies, but I have no.
Oops, all Rockies.
I mean, that would be objectively hilarious. I'm not going to lie. If somehow the Rockies had the most All-Stars on the ballot,
JK for the All-Star game.
Bud
But yeah.
Black would never let him not start again.
Yeah. But anyways, that's the All-Star game stuff. Make sure you do your votes and stuff. I don't know how much longer fan voting goes for the initial round stuff. I think that should be coming to a close here pretty soon. But make sure to get the vote out, get the word out, keep hyping up our boys, because there are, as bad as this team is, Evan, there are some guys to celebrate and to recognize.
It's like we say, the Rockies are bad, but there's always going to be guys on even bad teams where you can be excited for them and point out their good performances.
Mm-hmm. But we'll take one last break here. When we come back, we'll tap some loose ends, talk about some youngsters on the Rockles. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back here to Affected by Altitude. Final segment coming up. As we talked last week, we recorded on a Saturday and we had the initial news that, Adael Amador was going to get called up, the Rockies' #1 prospect, was going to get called up to the big leagues as Brendan Rodgers went on the injured list. We didn't know for sure at the time of recording. Shortly after time of recording, they're like, yeah, he's getting called up. So he's been up for a week. He's played pretty much every day since getting called up and completed his first full week in the big leagues. First series at home, first series on the road. Evan, how has Mr. Amador looked?
Better than his numbers would show you, honestly. Mm-hmm. First game or two, in his first game and his first pitch in the first at-bat in the big leagues, it was amazing for him to get his first big league base hit. But since then, he's really not done a lot with the stick. He's just got 3 total hits, all singles, and 1 stolen base. So he's currently hitting just clean across 115, 115, 115 with an OPS of 230. That sounds pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. But context is important in baseball.
And he has got a staggeringly low BABIP of 150. Mm-hmm. It really has. And if you have watched every game he's played in, like I have, we are watching. He has made adjustments. He has been making strides and seeing the ball better and being calmer in the box. He struck out a lot during his first couple games where, he had 2 strikeouts in his second career game. 1 strikeout, 2 strikeouts, 1-1. And then last couple games, he hasn't really been striking out that much. And if you look at his strikeout totals, he's only struck out 6 times in 26 at-bats. Mm-hmm. That's not bad. And what we're watching is he's making contact. And that's what his staggeringly low BABIP showed. He's making contact. He's making, honestly, pretty solid contact sometimes. In the Pirates game on Saturday, where the Rockies just completely beat down the Pirates, and it was actually a lot of fun, he almost went deep. And it barely missed the wall. And it would have been an extra base hit had it not been for a really good running play from Pirates outfielder, what's his name?
Edward Olivares.
Edward Olivares, thank you. And we've seen that a lot, where he's hitting it directly into a glove, or he's just flying deep out. But this is very similar to Jordan Beck, where, when he started, he was struggling, but you could watch him slowly take better at bats, have a better eye, more competitive. And that's what Adael Amador is doing. And Adael Amador is extremely young. He's 21 years old. He's coming straight up here from AA. And for him to start adjusting that fast is really impressive. And I know that on Twitter and other places, I was like, oh man, I can't believe the Rockies ruined Adael Amador already. Because it was frustrating to see a guy who is known for his impeccable plate discipline in the minors striking out a lot. But same as Jordan Beck, we've seen him slow down and adjust to, I think I would call, the speed of the big league game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when he came up, you could just tell he was being antsy. And he probably still is a little bit. They're still having to get over that hurdle of, no, dude, you don't have to come up here and do anything different than what you were doing in the minors. Like you don't need to be waving a thing. You don't need to prove anything, which if he feels that way, the Rockies need to get on top of that real quick and be like, oh, no, we just need you to be you and play, and the results will come. So hopefully he's not playing with this added pressure or looking over his shoulder of, oh, I'm only here while Brendan Rodgers is gone for 10 days and I got to prove myself now, which I could totally see being the case. But like you said, it's him making adjustments where 6 strikeouts in 6 games. That's not bad. 1 strikeout a game. It's not horrendous, but it would be nice to see him, work on that plate discipline more, that eye, start drawing those walks, because we know he is a walking fiend. But he's put the bat on the ball. He's put the ball in play. He's had a couple of good drives. Unfortunately, Edward Olivares decided to play impeccable defense and
he got
make a running grab
twice on Saturday by Olivares. And but it really is the fact that this is a strikeout happy team. This team strikes out a lot. And it shows very well that after the first 2 games of his big league career, Adael Amador slowed way down on those strikeouts and only has 6 strikeouts in his first basically week of playing. Shows you the potential that this kid has. And I really hope he doesn't have to feel like I have to prove as much as I can before Brendan Rodgers gets back, because, Brendan Rodgers, he's probably going to go on a rehab assignment within the next week or so is what things are looking like right now. But he's going to come back at some point, and unfortunately, they're going to option Adael back down. That's just how it goes. The team doesn't think he's quite ready yet. They called him up because they figured it would be good to give him a taste of the big leagues. And for what it's worth, and I will give the Rockies tremendous credit for this because we were all a little worried about it. If you remember our episode last week, they've had him play every game since he came up.
Mm-hmm. Especially when Bud Black's like, oh, we'll get him acclimated and try to get him some starts. You're like, what the heck does that even mean?
That immediately set off the alarm bells in my head of like, oh, come on. But he's played every game. And I would love it if the Rockies kept Adael up. But the problem is, if you do that and then Rodgers comes back, then his playing time is gonna start to dry up, because the Rockies, they're going to play their Gold Glove second baseman, whether they're trying to trade him or not. And, the last thing we need, like we've talked about, is to get fewer plate appearances and just have these kids just hanging around doing nothing.
Mm-hmm. But in his first week, Amador's looked like the adjustments coming. We've seen him do some slick things over at second base as he continues to just get comfortable there and working with Tovar. There's instances where you see him and Tovar talking to each other, and the nice little camaraderie between those two up the middle. So exciting to see whatever happens with him and just seeing his growth. It's nice to get a little glimpse of him now for however long it is. But other guy that we keep getting glimpses of, even though he's been on the roster since the end of April, it's Hunter Goodman, who had himself a day on Saturday against the Pirates in a big blowout party for the Rockies, where Ryan McMahon stole home. Michael Toglia hit a grand slam. Hunter Goodman had 2 home runs. The Rockies became the first team in the modern era to have those 3 things happen in the same game, which is a weird and crazy stat. But he almost hit for the cycle. Jay Cave almost hit for the cycle. A lot of crazy things. But Hunter Goodman, with Diaz going on the injured list, got the chance to catch and may get another chance here. They're trying to work him into the lineup again. But what are we doing with Hunter Goodman, Evan?
Hunter Goodman is one of those guys we talked about a ton of how frustrating it's been to watch him struggle to get playing time, because he's shown that when he does get playing time, he can hit pretty well and he can do what needs to be done. And it was really great to see him on Saturday night, first of all, playing his preferred position, which is catcher, for just the second time in a big league uniform. catching a guy that he's familiar with Ty Blach, and Ty Blach had nothing but glowing things to say about how Goodman did behind the plate. Said he was framing pitches really well, stole a couple of strikes, was catching the low ball very well. So you've got him in his comfortable space as the catcher, and then you watch him put up one of the best rookie performances in a single game by any Rockies hitter. I believe he tied for the second most total bases in a game with 2 home runs, a double, and a single. He didn't strike out even one time. His last at-bat, the only at-bat where he recorded an out, he still drove in a run. And he's hit some balls with authority here. Hunter Goodman, we've seen, has the ability to just wall up the ball, but you need to let him play and you need to let him get confident. And even today, Sunday's game, where honestly, he didn't really do that much, but he made some contact with authority, and he wasn't like a liability or anything like that. So it's worth it to continue to get this guy his playing time.
Mm-hmm. And it's some talked about before of how confident are the Rockies in his catching abilities, how confident is Bud Black in his catching abilities. Because, yeah, the 2 times he's caught Ty Blach, who, all things considered, isn't the hardest pitcher to catch. He's really throwing 2 pitches, the slow fastball and a changeup. That's mostly what Ty Blach's doing, and he works quick, pounds the zone. So catching Ty Blach is probably pretty easy. It's how would he do with a Cal Quantrill, who has a little bit more advanced pitch mix type of thing. So I don't know how confident the Rockies are in how he would work with some of these pitchers, his ability to call a game, work with pitchers. I just don't know where the Rockies stand with that. But it's weird when that's his comfortable position. He can hit when he catches. It's when he's playing right field, first base, positions he's not really familiar with. I wouldn't say very comfortable with, and arguably not very good at. In a sense, when you have better options to play those positions. His name's Michael Tolia. But with Diaz injured, it's a good little window of opportunity of, okay, let's see what he can do and where we can assess some things here with him.
Yeah, because with Goodman, what it is, especially like you said with Diaz on the injured list, you can catch a glimpse and give him more opportunities to catch more advanced pitchers like Cal Quantrill and see if maybe if you were to trade Elias Diaz or Jacob Stallings or both, that you could still use Hunter Goodman as a catcher.
Mm-hmm.
Either as a placeholder for when Drew Romo comes up, or Willie McIver, or even all 3. You have then the opportunity if you just give him a chance. And that's what we've been begging for this whole season. Give him a chance. Give him some consistent playing time. He just keeps sitting and sitting and sitting. And, they throw Jake Cave into the lineup, and that's been more of a necessity this week than it has been previously. I will admit to that. But then you have these games where he shows that he can be at least a good hitter. His catching is cromulent at best. That's sort of how it's been for him. But sometimes that's really all you need.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if he's going to hit.
Yeah. And that's the thing is he's the defensive side. It's him finding consistency at the plate where, to his credit, even in sporadic playing time, it's hard to find consistency. But in the opportunities he does get, the offense hasn't been there. Yeah, he can wall up a ball when he makes contact, but a 440-foot foul ball does me nothing. Doesn't do anything for me. As cool as it is to see, man, he hit that hard. It doesn't do anything for me. It's strike one type of thing. But we know what he could do. And it's, can he find that consistency at the big league level when he does play, regardless of if he's catching or not? If he's DHing, playing right field, first base, something like that, can he hit regardless of the position he's playing? And so far, he can hit when he catches, but he can't hit when he's playing first or right field or something like that. And so there's this weird area where we have 2 better catchers than him that can hit, and he can play these other positions, but we have guys who can play those positions better, who can also kind of hit. And so he's still an interesting player. Maybe I can write a curious case of Hunter Goodman.
3 weeks in a row.
But we know what he can do, and we can see how much he can impact a game with the home run, especially best power hitter. But it's just finding that consistency and finding where can we get him to play and find success consistently. And I still don't know where that is.
But you could say the same of that with Michael Tolia.
Exactly.
Or Alaris Montero. Though honestly, I think, and
We
I
figured
love
out Montero.
Monty, I think the clock is ticking with his time in the Rockies. It's frustrating, and honestly, I think it's our fault that he did not develop properly. Not ours, as in you.
I
and
didn't do anything. I didn't do anything, Evan.
We were begging the Rockies to give him playing time and work on his development.
I send an email to Dick Monfort every day saying, "Don't play Monty."
Why would you do that, Skyler? How could you?
I wanted Tolia to play. I'm still mad about the Nolan Arenado trade.
You're actively trying to sabotage the team from within as revenge.
As revenge for trading Arenado.
This is the heel turn we've all been waiting for, folks. Turns out one of us is evil.
It was Skyler all along.
If you asked
somehow Palpatine returned.
There you go. It was Palpatine
if you asked
all
our
along.
audience which one of us is the evil one, I don't know. I feel like most of them would say me.
You are a twin.
I mean, yeah, but am I the evil twin? You don't know my family.
Yes.
Well, okay. There you have it, folks. I'm the evil twin, but apparently not the evil host.
Oh!
I looked in the wrong direction. I was gonna turn around and do but I just turned my head because on my screen you're on the other side. So I turned my head to face where you're on my screen, but because the camera flips everything, I'm just looking in the complete wrong direction. We've been doing this for almost 3 years, folks. And somehow I haven't gotten any better at it.
Hey, this is our 4th season.
Oh, goodness. Is it really?
But anyways, that's where we're at with Hunter Goodman. And my record continues of long episodes, so I apologize for that.
If we earned this one, I think we earned a little extended venting sesh when it comes to one Mr. Kris Bryant, Kris with a K.
Yes. But
is Kris short for Christopher, or is it just Kris?
I don't know.
We're going to find out.
Kris, so
Christopher with a K, Lee Bryant.
Oh.
Apparently his nicknames include Sparkles, Silk, and KB. I've never heard anyone refer to him as anything other than KB. But apparently baseball has this whole list of baseball player nicknames in alphabetical order.
Yep. So we'll call him Silky Sparkles.
Silky Sparkles. Apparently there was a guy named Eddie Ainsmith whose nickname was Dorf.
There you go.
He was born in the Russian Federation in 1890. Antonio Alfonseca, also known as El Pulpo or the Octopus.
Good stuff. Yeah, a lot of fun stuff there on Baseball Reference.
Felipe Alou was called El Panque de Jaina.
I don't like to put Heinz on my pancakes.
I'm sure somebody does.
Yeah, those people are weirdos.
Luke Appling, the Hall of Fame shortstop, was apparently nicknamed Ol' Aches and Pains.
I feel that.
He turned 30, and we all feel that. Earl Averill, the Earl of Sonomish.
There you go.
Pedro Baez, the Human Rain Delay. One of my favorite ones that I just found out recently from one of our other SB Nation writers is Rocco Baldelli, the guy who's the manager of the Twins right now, his nickname playing was apparently the Woonsocket Rocket because he is from the town of Woonsocket, Rhode Island. And that's a pretty solid one.
Mm-hmm. Not
Let's
too
see
shabby.
what else we got here.
We should probably wrap this up, though, as Evan keeps looking up nicknames.
I'm having fun. Matt Barnes was apparently named Matty Backpacks. We already know Don Baylor was Groove, but did you know he was also called the Sneak Thief?
The Sneak King.
Sneak
Exclusively
Thief.
on Xbox 360.
Dylan Betances, also known as D-Dog, El Acido, and Dylan J.
There you go. But anyways, we'll close this out here. Evan, where can the folks find you?
You can find me looking at Lou Boudreau, also known as Ol Shufflefoot, on Twitter at Evan_Lang27. You can also find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop. As for my writing, you can find me on www.purplerow.com, writing the Monday Rock Pile and Weekly Pebble Report.
There
How about
go.
you, Skyler?
Find me over on Twitter at sideline_crowd, making jokes, talking about stuff. Nobody responded to my picture of the injured salesman from the SpongeBob Chocolate episode in my comparison to Kris Bryant. That's okay. I only cried twice last night.
What if I picked one of these nicknames to call you?
I'm good. Mordecai Three Finger Brown. But also, you can check out Every Rocky Ever. We just had a new episode come out. We spent about an hour and a half talking about Rockies' first-round draft picks, including Greg Reynolds, Chris Nelson, and Ian Stewart, to name a few. Also, Evan, Matt Harrington, one of the most unfortunate Rockies draft picks in history, and that dude had the worst agent.
I remember that because they kept having him re-enter the draft.
Well, yeah.
And it wasn't just diminishing returns every time, and then eventually no one picked him.
Yeah, because the Rockies drafted him, and then his agent was like, no, we want a huge first-round signing bonus that was higher than the first-round pick in the previous year's draft. And the Rockies are offered, okay, we'll sign you to this contract and have a guaranteed call-up by the end of the 2020 or end of 2002. They didn't sign, and then he kept getting picked by teams lower and lower in the draft. Swapped agents at one point, and just more and more. Never did anything, and then went and worked at Costco.
That's sad.
Yeah, and he eventually sued that original agent.
I would have.
That guy was an idiot. But hey, you know what they say, Evan.
That Tommy Dowd. Baseball. Oh, I was going to say that 1800s baseball player Tommy Dowd was also nicknamed Buttermilk Tommy.
There you go. And on that,
I'm still on the nicknames list. I will never leave the nicknames list. Adam Eaton was nicknamed Spanky.
This has been Affected by Altitude. I'm Skyler. That's Evan. Until next time. Farewell. Farewell.
The best part about these nicknames is when there's a comma between them, but you can't see it. So you just read all of them straight. So you have Rapid Robert Heater from Van Meter.
The Heater from Van Meter.
Smokey Joe Happy. Dougie Fist. Dougie Fresh. All right, that's enough of that.